All righty. So you were saying, what did you start with?
Oh, I feel the density.
I have been actually in this fabulous place since Friday because it's like something just broke open. Uh, After I've been sitting the creation and the intention to have more clarity, to know whatever. Oh, our immersion translation thing, right? That we set ourselves to do the immersions.
I think Charlie's chewing on my bed. Sorry. He has turned quite destructive. Hang on a second.
Yep. All right. So, yeah, it was like, we did the immersion thing last week, the immersion learning the new language or remembering the language and communication in this different way. And I continue to do that. And my dreams have been so bizarre and very vivid all week. But Friday morning was interesting because I was in meditation and all I saw was like I was underneath this huge, like humongous tree, probably, the tree of life, who knows, right? It was this like huge. And there was this tablet, like it looked like a gravestone, but it wasn't a gravestone. It was like this tablet sticking out of the ground and it had these characters on it.
Like the Ten Commandment tablets.
What was that?
The Ten Commandment tablets.
Oh, there you go. It had like some kind of, it looked like, it was like, I think it was light language because there was somebody else, some being or me standing on the far side of it, looking at me, like waiting for me to look at the tablet. And I was looking at the tablet. And as I looked at it, all the characters lit up. The whole thing just like crumbled into ashes and turned into something else that was almost like a crystalline flower or something. And then it all just went into my heart, like all in this one big whatever. It was like, and then I was like, oh, okay, that was really awesome, whatever that was, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to let that sit and let that assimilate, whatever that is. Maybe that was my Rosetta Stone. Who knows? But so Friday afternoon, I went for a walk with Sahaj Anand, who's another practitioner, and we because we've been once a week, we've been trying to get the walk around the lake and stuff, whatever. So in talking, we're talking about like the next places for, like, cause she's looking at places to go, like to move next. And of course I have that whole thing pending with my house and whatnot. So I was like, yeah. And then when I started talking, and at the very beginning of the walk, a bald eagle flew right across our path. Right. Which was really cool. I've never seen a bald eagle at that park before. And she looks up, she goes, is that a bald eagle? I'm like, oh my God, yes it is. And then while we're talking and like we were talking about, so she's and I'm like, well, I really don't have like guidance yet as to where I'm going to go. And then stuff started kind of about Colorado, which keeps on coming up. Remember, it came up last year once, and I'm like, yeah, it's not on my list though. And it was like, but then I remember like guidance I had like 6 years ago that I might have to go for a while to get out of the like out in the woods, like, get away from everything for a little bit.
Right. Off the grid.
What was that?
Off the grid.
Yeah, off the grid. That's it. And something else. There's like, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so we were talking about that because she was looking at Colorado too for other purposes. And then at the end of the walk, like we're talking, and for some reason I brought up that tablet thing, which was odd because I usually just sort of journal that stuff and let it sit. And then as I'm saying it, I understood very clearly that was your navigation system for the next steps, like your entire navigation for like, moving into whatever's next. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, guess what? I just got embedded with my own navigation, by remembering my navigation. That was really cool. So that was really cool. Something hit me on Friday on the way up to Boone. But and it was funny that something that my mother said, because my mother's been talking about she's got tinnitus, right?
Right.
She's been talking about frequency. She's been talking about wondering if the EMFs affect her hearing, the tinnitus. And, usually I just sort of like, okay, yeah, well, whatever. But, something hit me about that on Friday. Like, while we were driving up and I was like, sort of not, like in that zone space of not thinking. And I was like, you know what? Think of the preponderance of migraines today and tinnitus and headaches and eye issues, right? Now, of course, we're staring at screens a lot more. But I started to wonder if the huge amount of EMFs that we all use, right, because that we all have embedded, whether it's Wi-Fi or cell phones or whatever, I thought, well, Odessa keeps on coming up, right?
Right. Well, and, something that I've been looking more into, and for some reason this feels pertinent to that, is the vitamin D, which you look at vitamin D and the only real natural source for it is sunlight.
Right.
Which means it's a frequency that the body then manufactures vitamin D from.
Right.
Well, the things that block it are sunscreen, clothing, things like that literally block the sun out. So if you are constantly blocking that out, but yet you've added in like Wi-Fi or whatever, then maybe the body's desperately trying to find something to use that frequency for.
Yeah. Well, and if it's blocking it to some degree, or you know what I'm saying, or altering its effect on how it, interacts with the human body, right?
Right.
That would be, there's a lot of people have vitamin D deficiency right now.
Well, it's like an epidemic, and I notice when I intentionally go out and sit for 20 minutes in the sun, even this time of year, I feel a difference. It may not be instantly, but definitely by the next day, I feel more energized.
Well, and I think that's why it was interesting, the whole thing about us doing that walk at the lake. And it's like, well, because I'm exercising with Kung Fu all the time now and whatever, pretty much daily, because I do certain things in the morning and whatever. But it's like I have been getting a lot of messages on getting back into nature, and more, which I do naturally when it's warmer out. But the wintertime, we tend to hole ourselves up.
Well, and with the overcast skies, and which,
Right.
tend to be more the winter.
Yeah. I mean, and you still do get it when you're outside, even if it's overcast, because it does come through the clouds. But anyway, so yeah, so right. So the understandings that were coming to me had to do with, well, somehow this whole EMF thing is altering us.
Right.
And it's our choice whether we transcend limitations by it, or if we allow ourselves to fall victim to it. Right. Which, is always a choice, but.
Right. Which is just like, when you microwave food.
Right.
You choose to make it different than what it comes out of the microwave, or you can choose to, it's just another layer that you have a choice about.
Right. And so many are being affected negatively by that, the EMFs, which now I understand why the orgonite pyramids have sold so well over these last years, right? But now it's time for us to step into that choice ourselves and say, either I will allow it to limit me, or I will step above it and allow the best parts of it to somehow affect me only, right?
Well, and to be able to use it as we choose.
Yes.
Versus being a victim to it.
Yes. So like, what if we shifted the vibration for that to allow us to absorb, the perfect amount of vitamin D for us, or
right,
or whatever, or instead of, closing down certain parts of our brain to help open it, to support opening it up, So that's what I did at that moment when that all realization hit me. It was like, okay, yeah, anything that I have left of that, because I'm pretty sure I had shifted that a while ago, but okay, anything I have left of that, let me transcend anything that would be limiting, because I think that's what's tied into like the Odessa stuff that keeps on coming up, right?
And it sure does.
I know, it comes up again and again, and I'm going, okay, so, we recognize this is all an illusion. And it's all a story, but it's like, wow, it just keeps on hitting us in the face over and over and over again. So I was like, okay, somehow that's all related. And what do you think so the EMFs could be used to manipulate certain things too, right?
Yeah.
And they've done studies on that. That's not conspiracy theory. They know.
Right.
That can,
right.
Our brains work on frequency. So access to different levels of frequency, help it to access different things.
So what occurred to me, and I don't know what day we were texting about Odessa. I don't even know what week.
One of those discussions. Yeah.
It was last week, but yeah. I don't remember. It seems that what if we have just, that's the term we've put on a step in this process of what we're bringing in, this next place.
Right.
And it's like now we're referring to it as Odessa, where, before it's been termed something else, but it's that, this is using judgment, that painful evolution.
Right, because that's why the whole Lemuria thing came up last week, right? And the remembrance of the reptilian stuff, right?
Right.
Which is where we feel like that originated. And my feeling is that, of course, we've probably set it up to have the environment in a perfect state to support whatever changes, right?
Right. No matter what we attempt to circumvent it from changing to.
Right. And it's...
What if climate change is necessary to bring about what needs to happen? So no matter what we try to do conservation-wise or whatever, it's not going to make a difference. It's inevitable.
Yeah, so it's our choice, though, and that's the key, I think, right now, is on how we choose to have the experience, whether we allow it to flow, right, and be easy and comfortable and expansive, and I think, maybe that's why there's so many who are transitioning, because they fight it so much, right?
Right.
Their bodies fight it so much. That causes cancers and all that kind of stuff. That makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, and that goes down to a deep-rooted fear of change. Wow. Well, that's funny how that just came up. A really deep-rooted cellular-like fear of change, a resistance to change, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's just part of what we have. Yeah.
Well, and, there's something that you sent a link, and I swear, I think this was last week. And I think it was that Twin Flame article you sent. Something that really hit me about that blog was that the healing is in the wound. And the only reason we look at it as, quote, a wound is because of the fear and the pain and all that's associated with it. And if you lose that, then of course. So just like our resistance to all these change and everything else is fear-based.
Yes. Well, and it isn't it? And it's judgment-based.
Right. So that is essentially a wound. Because otherwise I wouldn't think it would invoke the fear.
And, it's funny you say that, because, I went to see that movie A Wrinkle in Time this weekend, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, and I've read the book and whatever, but the funny thing is, in the movie, even they kept this statement of the light comes from your wound, which is interesting, just like that in that same statement. And also there's this part where, like these ethereal beings give this girl, gift to help her, support her, go through something they can't go through and help her with. And one of them says, I give you your faults.
Right.
Right. Which, when you hear that, like the first thing you think is what, you give you your faults. But the thing is, most of the time, what we consider our faults are actually can be strengths in other ways, right? It's just a matter of judging them. Yeah.
And even if you look at it, your faults are to propel you in a certain direction. I mean, that's a gift.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might not go in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the right time, she realizes how to utilize her faults to her advantage.
Right.
And twist it in the way that helps support the situation kind of thing. But yeah, and so that's really all it's about, which is interesting. I just look up and there's this, on my painting on the wall, there's a spider sitting there. Which is all about that,
That web.
That web of weaving a new story.
Well, and along with that is the card I drew today was Initiation, Spiritual Testing of Ra, and the Lady Isis. And it says, when you're being spiritually initiated into the mysteries of light, love, and power, there are moments of deep challenge. Key is to find the light within the challenge, the learning, growth, and wisdom that can be summoned to turn the challenge into an opportunity for healing. While the scorching heat of Ra seeks to burn through any resistance, the Lady Isis, with compassion and cleverness, will protect you from burning and instead enable you to nourish and grow from the light of Ra. So it's that whole just changing your perception of it.
Well, because, it goes back to that idea of we fear what we don't understand, right?
Right. And if you allow the remembering, it instantly takes the fear away.
Right. I'm looking at my journal to see if there's anything else I want to talk about with that.
I need to write some of this down.
Yeah. So part of it has to do with this. It truly is this place of, part of why we've been guided to come to this place of acceptance and faith, or trust, or however you want to put it, right? Of not, because I had, interestingly enough, throughout last week, I had a good handful of calls and texts from people who have now been suddenly hit with an unexpected huge change in their life. I mean, you even had that stuff going on, right? So, and it's all very unique to the individual, but it's all has the same energy of, are you able to flow with this? Right.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so what I suggest is always, if you want to have a temper tantrum about it, step back and give yourself the time and say, okay, I'll give myself 24 hours to have my temper tantrum. I'll put all this on the shelf.
Right.
I won't take it out on anybody, but I'll just let it flow, like have my tantrum and then come back to this in that period of time and then stick with it. And then after whatever period of time, 24, 48 hours, you can come back and say, okay, so now what's the bigger picture of this? And if I looked at this from the outside in, if I look at this from the higher perspective, what could this be my glaring, flashing neon light showing me, to light the way, instead of it being something that I'm thinking, the ego is thinking is putting more burden on. It's only our perception that it's burden.
Right. Everything's perfect. What am I saying to myself?
Right. So how could this be something that, is this something I can change? Is there something that is this something I can change and still continue on in this higher consciousness with flow and joy and abundance and whatever you want to put in there? And if not, how do I change it? Well, then let me give it like conscious clarity on how to change it. And what is it there to show me? What's the lesson there to show me so I can complete that and move on, right?
Right.
And part of our real lesson right now is becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Right. Just have it be just another thing.
Yeah. Yep. And so, instead of making it it's like, and what I bring up to people is, well, look, I don't know where I'm going to be living in, a year, 2 years, 5 years, I don't even know where, like it could be next year that I have to move and I still have no idea, no clear guidance as to what's next.
Right.
I know something is, and I know it's big. It's not like I'm just gonna, it's like, nope, I'm feeling this, like, I'm feeling like a similar feeling to doing one of those float tanks where you're pushed up to the top of the water, right? Because there's so much salt in it.
Right.
Like, nope, I'm being pushed right on out of my house, right on out of this. And, remember I said the other week about looking at the map and it's like almost like the universe is just plucking us out and saying, yep, time for you to disappear from this part of the world and go someplace else. Your job is done here,
Right.
And so, and I'm like, and my choice is to say, what an exciting adventure, what an exciting opportunity, and what fun, that I have this big surprise of a gift, that's waiting, that I know will be open and be perfect at the perfect moment.
Right.
And so, I'm like, okay, so then in the meantime, what do I do? That's what I keep on asking. What do I do now?
And what do I do now that can support that?
Yeah. Right. Support that outcome in that way. Right.
And allow it to flow and allow myself to make whatever adjustments to maximize.
Yes. Optimize that whole situation and the outcomes and everything. So that's my choice. Now, some people, being that we've lived in this house for coming on 22 years now. Yep. Some people would really be angry about, there's a lot of people who are angry about what's going on and stuff here with the highway and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, so you can, because it's funny, I had a whole conversation. It was almost like my mother was reflecting back that devil's advocate thing, a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I was telling her about the update with the property and all that kind of stuff. And I was showing her the maps and, and it was like this, she was all upset about it. And I'm like, oh, and that's so funny. Cause I'm just like, okay, whenever it's time, right? Why are they doing this? And this is real. I'm like, in all honesty, if you look at the bigger picture, it's really well overdue because this area has grown so much. It is sprawling and we don't have the roads to support it. So that's what they're trying to catch up with. And I understand that. What's the joke is how long it's taken them to get there, but, and the planning was not the best, but you know what? I'm not fighting that idea because I believe that it's needed, from the bigger picture. Right. And it was like, okay, it held off for as long as I need to be in this house. And now it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
Or almost time for us to go, So, and that's a big upheaval because, my kids were born and, well, like my oldest was less than a year when we moved in here and my youngest was born here and this is it. This is where we've been. My kids have grown up here and now they're just, they're on the last legs of college. And it's like, well, okay, well, you did all that, right? Remember how I'd said years ago, I'd gotten this thing that my husband and I had this agreement that we wanted just like, normalcy for like 20 years. Well,
there you go.
We got more than 20. Sort of, because I don't know if what I do is normal, but to me it is. So, but and it's like, okay, well, that came back to me the other day too. It's like, yeah, well, we fulfilled that and then some, and now it's time to just go and have our, exciting adventure now because we had our kids and the dogs and the picket fence and whatever. And it's like, okay, so even better next. So that's what everyone has the choice to choose, right? We can choose to let the EMFs hurt us. We can choose to deprive our bodies, to have our bodies fight it, to fight the physical changes in the environment, or we can choose to adapt and evolve and say, okay, if we put this in our path, it was in some way to help this support this evolution that we're undergoing, right? And if we set the energy and intention to be completely supportive of the full and expansive evolution versus evolution through limitation, let's see how different that can be,
Right.
And that just that feels really good and easy.
Right.
And anybody who's going through that will say, oh, well, you say that, but it's like, no, it is our choice on how easy or hard it is. Always.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, well, this is going on. I can utilize this time to blank. Right. Or give me guidance as to what this can be utilized to do, or what it's here to motivate me to do, inspire me to do.
Right. Or allow me to do.
Right. Because the more we become conscious of that, the more we move into that space of not needing a catalyst to evoke change.
Right.
Which is what we've become so dependent on. And then we judge that, right? Because we say, okay, well, we can only bring on change if we have some huge catalyst or some catalytic events. But it's like, but that's how we've done it here for so long. And so like, maybe this is what we're breaking ourselves of and giving ourselves the opportunity to do while incarnate. And that's why, like I said, it sort of hit me with all this stuff and everybody with the cancers and the resistance in the body. It's like, well, all we've been guided to do for how long is to allow the body to expand, to accept and flow with anything, and still be able to function optimally and expansively and, in a way that is vibrant and healthy. And look at all the sickness that's been coming up this winter, right?
Oh, I know. Just oh, well, now you need 2 flu shots and crazy stuff.
I know.
So, yeah.
I know. What I find so funny is with all of these campaigns for the flu shots, we're going to go on a little soapbox here because you and I have had these conversations. we can plug our own little soapbox every once in a while. But, with all of the stuff that they plug about the vaccination, the flu vaccinations, like you don't hear any campaigns on healthy eating and healthy living and, taking better care of yourself so that your body has a better immune system so that you don't get the flu and don't need the shot anyway.
Right.
Because ultimately, if you have a kick-ass immune system, you're not going to get the flu.
Right. Or you may have a day of not feeling so great.
Right.
And you just take extra care of yourself and then you move on.
Exactly. Well, it was funny because week before last, my daughter had something and she moved through it in like 2 days.
Right.
And then last week there were a couple of days where I kept on getting a touch of like it felt like it was out here, and I was tired, but it wasn't really hitting my body. And then I'd get a little bit stuffy and then it would go away. But I never felt sick. I never got that whole thing. And my understanding was this is like our physical bodies adapting to a huge amount of change in a really, really intensely accelerated way, in a very short period of time, quote unquote. Right. And all I would do is, okay, so whatever. And when we talked about the virus thing, right, I think that was last week or the week before, or one of those weeks, about knowing that virus, we set up our physical DNA to be editable via virus, it's like, well, that would make a lot of sense, right? But we can choose again to either have symptoms or not. We can choose for the, to feel limiting or not. We could allow it to be easy, or we could allow it to knock us on our asses. So,
well, and we can also, I was thinking this morning about, our belief in the aging process. And it's like, we can either choose to buy into that or not.
Right.
And it's that same choice.
Yep.
With the virus. It's like we can either choose to buy into the symptoms and to buy into that physical effect or not.
Yeah. And so if I started feeling anything that was like a symptom, right, I'd be like, okay, expand to allow, right? Allow the flow, allow it to flow through, allow the changes to come that are to come, to optimize and support and expand, and let it be easy and comfortable and whatever, and then it would dissipate.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so because we're so used to shutting down, and that's really the challenge that we're going through right now, because everybody right now is like, we don't think of shutting down. We don't think of analysis paralysis as shutting down, but it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because when we get into analysis mode, and what box is this? What disease is this? What flu strain is this? What...
Or look at it from the spiritual term. Okay, what resistance and what belief and but you're still in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're still in the mind, and you're still allowing the mind to drive your action and your choices.
Right. Right. And if you set everything to just support your evolution and a remembrance to come back to your full divinity in a way that's, fun and flowing and whatever. And it's like, okay, all I'm going to do is allow.
Right.
Because the more resistance we put in, the sicker we feel, the harder it becomes.
And the stucker you get.
Right. And that's where that perception of suffering comes in.
Right.
So it's like, well, this is how we do it differently, right? We've been asking, how do we do it differently for so long? But this is it. I was talking to somebody else last week who has had it's interesting. They left a very caustic and toxic environment that they'd been living in for a couple of years. And that was, I think, 3 or 4 months ago. And for 4 months, like the things they thought were going to happen, after that, because they expected certain things once they left it, it just started to come together, but then it fell away. And what I felt like, in talking to the person, it was just an informal conversation. It was like, well, it's sort of like we're again getting comfortable in our and being in an uncomfortable zone, right? Being in our discomfort zone, because anything, once we're shaken from that place of stagnation and limitation, right now the universe is just, you want to talk about supporting, the expansion, is like, well, yeah, okay, sometimes supporting the expansion and evolution is keeping you in a place that's uncomfortable for a while, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so her living arrangement, like all this stuff was just, it was like, it has been constantly like uncomfortable because she hasn't, like where she thought something was going to happen, it didn't, and and it was just like one thing after the other. And she goes, I sort of feel like a nomad right now. And I'm like, well, maybe that's what you need, and
right.
And so the more we talked, and then she's like, oh, I'm so glad we talked, because she's like, I forget, because I get around people who they're like, oh, well, maybe you still have to heal this, and you have to heal this, and you have to look at this, and you have to go deep into this. And she goes, and I've been doing that for years. She goes, I'm sort of tired of it.
Right. Well, it's like, how many times do I have to look at this?
Right. And so it's like, but you don't, because you don't have to look at it. Right. And maybe that's what it is the lesson is to get to this place of going, how about I instead appreciate what the good points here are, give myself, clarity on what the bigger picture is on this. And again, the lesson and like how to move forward from it and flow through it, and what's the next step, and what I've been doing is that whole like have gratitude to the universe for supporting this amazing adventure, right? An expansive journey of this evolution in ways that are just magical, and, that whole, the magical and synchronistic and serendipitous in every now, in every day and every now. And then when I do that, and I've been doing that, and it has been magical and awesome and fun, because then it makes it fun, because you're like, oh, look, a bald eagle. Like, what a powerful message that is, right? And just there were like so many interesting, odd kind of things that came up all weekend. That's what kept me like in this place of, oh my God, this is just so fun. Like, this is just such a fun weekend, and such a fun time. So that's what, and it sounds, and I know so many of the ego wants to say, well, easy for you and whatever, but it's like, no, it's our choice. And that's the thing to remember. It's our choice.
Right.
No matter what it looks like. And it was interesting because, shadow stuff still keeps on coming up.
Oh yeah.
Right. And of course, because the shadow is all related to all of this, right?
Well, and it's almost like, instead of being the smaller portion and everything's the light, and you get, it's becoming more even, to where the shadow is just as prevalent as the light.
Well, yeah.
And I don't think, I don't judge that to being a bad thing, because it's always been that way.
Well, and maybe part of it now is creating the shadow, or in that conscious creation of the shadow while we're still in separation, right? Because the shadow is simply where we're separated, right? To be conscious of it and still hold space for it to exist, and yet not give it power, which we can do. Like, it sounds like
made it to be something that it's not.
Right.
Right.
Instead, let's, find the beauty in that whole thing. So that feels so complete.
Right.
Oh, yeah, there's a yawn. But because
I think that supports that evolution through expansion.
Yeah.
That we were talking about, versus just the, expanding the light and all that. You got to expand it all.
Well, yeah. Because, really, the light is a creation too, right? It comes from the creative void.
Right.
I mean, the light was created in separation just as much as darkness was.
Right.
Which, blows a lot of people's minds, but...
Right.
Because we want to focus on one thing so much, and that's part of the lesson, is to realize that's light is duality based just as much as darkness is.
Right.
Because we think of, the void. People think of the void as like dark, and it's like, no, it's
everything.
It's the potential. It's
right.
full 100% potential.
Right.
So it's brimming with the power of divine consciousness and creation that's unlimited, and just infinite in all kinds of amazing ways. And just sitting in that energy, because when you can fully see the light without judgment, just as much as you can see the dark without judgment, right? Then you can sit in that space of pure potentiality.
Right.
Because then you're in that place of completion. Oh, that feels really powerful.
Right. You're sitting in the power of completion, not duality.
Yes.
That feels really good.
It feels really good. I'm like, oh, we don't need to say anything else now.
Come around.
Oh yeah. Just remembering how to do that seems to be our focus for this week.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm tingling all over.
I know. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Pure potentiality. Oh, yeah. So whatever's to do that, let's just do that.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
All right. You ready? I think that's
Man,
all. I don't think we need anything more than that, do you?
no, I don't.
All right. Well, let's go. Let's go do. That was really nice. Yeah, there was a big shift in there about, I can't even remember the beginning now, because it was like, oh yeah, no, I saw these spirals, and I saw like, so this energy going through these spirals, probably like the DNA, right, changing.
Yeah.
But it was like totally holographic, and I couldn't even explain what it looked like or felt like or it was. So went through all that, and then it was like, oh, now it's really a toy store, right? And then we were like in the middle of this store, and there was like all these shelves with all these toys on the shelves, right? And then we went to go reach for a toy, and then it was like, no. Remember that all of this is just a reflection of what you have already. So, reaching out to get a toy and then recognizing it as part of ourselves is an extra step energetically to just knowing it's already
there.
We are the toy store, right?
Right.
Which of course we know, but it was like another level of that to this,
Remembering.
to remembering. And then, what was the last part? I can't remember now, but because it was so expansive, then it was like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff. This is like, and then I was like, oh, because there was a distinct thing at the end, because then it was like, okay, now I got it. And then we were done. Yeah, that was cool.
I saw, I started out seeing, the light and the dark, or light and shadow, or whatever you want to call it. And then the creative void, like the three, that Trinity.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I was like embracing the creative void. And I was like, well, okay, how about I just see that in my heart and see the expansion of the creative void. And it was like, once I did that, it was like all the resistance and, shifting that we typically feel when things are adjusting. It was just like all of that just went away. And it was that pure potential that's always there, and allowing the mind to embrace that. And it was just like this wave after wave of, I want to say calming, but at the same time expansive, which normally isn't calming. It's energizing.
Right.
And it was just like,
well, calming because that was the toy store. That was what I saw as the toy store, right? And then it was like, because then at the end, it was like that. And what it is that removal of energy that we put to those extra steps. That's why it's calming,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I tell you, it was like, anytime I would, the mind would try to think about something, it would just be like this really heavy hand going, it doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that hard.
Stop putting in extra steps.
Right. Which was just, it wasn't even frustrating. It was like, oh yeah. It was an excitement in that remembrance.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I wish I could remember what I saw at the end, because it was that same kind of energy, but I can't remember. Then it was just like, oh no, this feels like having a really best, awesome, like holographic, multiversal massage ever.
Yeah.
That was nice. Oh, wow. Another very productive week. This has been, the last couple of weeks have been really hugely shifting. And just, incredible. Nice. Well, thanks to everybody who's joined us. Hope you enjoyed it and joined us outside of Space and Time, and we'll see you next time. Oh, yeah, I guess I could probably make first I gotta wait for my mouse to actually activate again. There it goes. Okay. See y'all next time.